I've worked the night shift at Costco for 3 months now. It's not the kind of job that earns you bragging rights, and the pay's nothing to get excited about. But for someone like me, who prefers silence over small talk and shadows over crowds, it worked just fine. There were fewer customers, fewer expectations, and, most importantly, fewer questions. And I learned early on that questions, if you weren't careful, could get you killed. We ran a skeleton crew during nights. Just 4 of us kept the whole warehouse going after dark. Me, the unofficial senior of the shift, though that wasn't a title anyone wanted. Then there was Pete, the loading dock guy who rarely left the back area. Kira handled frozen and dairy, methodical, serious, someone you didn't bother when she was focused. And tonight, we had someone new. Miles. Fresh out of high school, and still walking like he wasn't sure how tall he was. Eager to make a good impression, polite in the way kids are when they don't want to seem like they're trying too hard. He reminded me of a puppy in a brand new collar, energetic, curious, clumsy in all the wrong ways. I found him waiting in the break room at the start of our shift, perched nervously on one of the metal chairs, fiddling with a pen. I clocked in and gave him a nod. "You'll pick it up fast," I said, grabbing my vest and straightening it over my hoodie. "Just don't break anything and—" I pointed toward the wall behind him. A laminated sheet of paper was taped there, yellowed at the corners and curling with age. Someone had written "Read me" across the top in permanent marker years ago, and the letters had faded to a ghostly gray. "Read that. Every word. Don't skip anything." Miles glanced over his shoulder and frowned. "Rules?" he asked, half laughing. "Yes," I said, flattening my tone. "Rules for the night shift. We all follow them. You do too, or you won't last long. Trust me." He grinned like he thought I was joking. I didn't grin back. His smile faltered. Still, he got up, stepped closer, and read the list aloud under his breath. Night shift rules. 1. Do not whistle inside the store after 9:45 p.m. 2. Do not try to leave the building during your shift. 3. If you hear scratching in the ceiling vents, do not look up. 4. If you see a figure in the reflection of the freezer doors that isn't yours, do not move. 5. If the lights flicker 3 times in a row, drop to the floor and stay perfectly still. 6. Before sunrise, someone must turn on every overhead light in the warehouse. He looked back at me, one eyebrow raised. "Seriously?" "Dead serious," I said. "Keep your head down, don't ask questions, and you might walk out of here the same way you came in." Miles stared at me like he couldn't decide if I was messing with him or just being overly dramatic. But he nodded anyway and followed me out to the main floor. The store looked different at night. The aisles stretched longer, darker, as if the shelves had crept a little further apart while no one was watching. Overhead, the fluorescent lights buzzed a little louder than they did during the day. The sounds of forklifts and registers were gone, replaced by a low hum and the occasional mechanical sigh of the air systems. We got to work restocking seasonal items near the front. Miles trailed behind me, still casting glances at the freezer section, like the rules might have come to life when he wasn't looking. He wasn't wrong to be cautious. The night crew knew better than to treat those rules like a joke. Once you understood what those rules were holding back, you'd never laugh again. And whether Miles believed me yet or not didn't matter. Because by the end of the shift, he would. We spent the first couple hours in silence, mostly. I stocked pallets of diapers and Miles wrestled with cases of soup, trying not to drop anything. He was nervous, but not in a bad way, focused, trying to prove himself. That part, I respected. Everyone's nervous their first night. What matters is how long it takes before that nervousness turns into something worse. Panic, usually. Around midnight, we made our way toward frozen and dairy. The overhead lights in that section had always been a little too dim, like the bulbs were older there. The air was colder too. Not just from the freezers, colder in a way you could feel in your teeth. I was restocking breakfast sandwiches when I realized Miles wasn't moving. He stood about 10 feet away, facing one of the glass freezer doors, frozen mid-step with his head tilted just slightly. "Miles?" I called. He didn't answer. His hand was halfway to the handle, but he wasn't opening it, just staring. I dropped the box I was holding and walked toward him. The light from the freezer reflected off the glass, faint, blue, distorted, and in that warped reflection, I saw it too. Something else. a second figure standing beside him, only there was no one standing there in real life. The shape in the reflection didn't look like him. It was taller, too tall, and thinner than a human had any right to be. Its head was cocked at the same angle as his, but the rest of it didn't move. Miles's breath caught in his throat. "What the hell is that?" he whispered. I didn't answer. I stepped behind him and gently pulled him back. His eyes were wide. "It wasn't me, I swear. I saw something move in there." "You looked?" I asked quietly. He nodded, and just like that, it started. The reflection rules were the worst. Rule 4. If you see a figure in the reflection of the freezer doors that isn't yours, do not move. Not don't look at it. Not close your eyes, just don't move. It didn't say what happened if you did move, but it didn't have to. Everyone who had ever moved never clocked in again. The problem was, it wasn't the figure itself that woke the thing. It was the act of seeing it, acknowledging it. Once you see it, really see it, it knows. And once it knows, it doesn't forget. Miles was muttering to himself under his breath, trying to make sense of what just happened. "I thought it was a joke," he said. "You all acted so serious, I thought it was like a prank for new hires." "They always do," I said. We rounded the end of the aisle and ducked behind a towering stack of detergent buckets. I peeked around the corner, scanning for movement. The creature wasn't bound by footsteps. Didn't make noise unless it wanted to. Miles shifted behind me, looking back the way we came. I saw the realization start to creep into his face. This wasn't a joke. It wasn't just a weird reflection. There was something else in the store now, something that shouldn't exist. "We have to leave," he whispered, his voice trembling. "We can't," I said, sharper than I meant to. "Rule 2, the doors are sealed. If you try to leave, it waits right there. You'll never make it to the lot." "But it's not a normal creature," I cut him off. "It doesn't need the doors to get to you. It just needs you to break one more rule. Any of them." He swallowed hard and looked like he might be sick. I didn't blame him. The creature wasn't just hunting us. It was waiting. For mistakes, for instincts, for desperation to push someone just a little too far. And unfortunately, we were already out of time, because someone else was about to make that mistake. We stayed low as we crossed the center of the store, flitting between towering shelves and keeping our heads down. Miles was quiet now. That early eagerness had vanished, replaced by something heavy in his eyes, something like understanding. Across the warehouse, I spotted Pete near the snack section. He was restocking family-sized chip bags like it was any other night, earbuds in, nodding to music only he could hear. "Pete," I whispered, waving both arms. He didn't notice. I hissed through my teeth. "Damn it." Miles looked at me. "Should we go over there?" "No," I said. "Just let me get his attention." But then Pete paused mid-step. His body went rigid, one foot still hovering above the ground, his head tilted slightly up. No, I whispered, already knowing what came next. He was staring at the ceiling vent. The scratching had started, so soft it barely registered. A faint tick-tick-tick, like fingernails dragging across sheet metal. The kind of sound your brain wants to ignore. But Pete had noticed. He looked straight up. One glance. That's all it ever takes. The vent cover above him creaked. A shape moved, quick and fluid, slithering across the metal. And then I saw it. A pale hand, too long, too thin, slipped silently down from the vent. The fingers were grotesque, stretched and crooked, 6 of them, each joint bending just slightly in the wrong direction. It reached down, slow, careful, and seized Pete by the collar. He didn't have time to scream. The thing yanked him upward, vanishing back into the dark like a fishing line pulled into deep water. Miles covered his mouth. We rounded the aisle corner seconds later, but there was nothing left. Pete's pallet jack was tipped over. A single bag of chips lay split open, the air thick with the smell of artificial cheese and something far worse, rust and rot. That smell always came afterward. It clung to your tongue, like blood and mildew soaked into cardboard. I grabbed Miles and pulled him back into the shadows. "We keep moving," I said. He nodded without speaking. His hands were shaking now, but he kept up. I wanted to stop. I wanted to breathe. I wanted to throw up. But I couldn't do any of those things, not while it was watching, not while it was still hungry. And in the dim light above us, the vents shifted again. We moved through the side aisles, keeping to the shadows. Miles stayed behind me, quiet now, except for the sharp rhythm of his breathing. The kind of breathing that comes right before a full-blown panic attack. I didn't blame him. The store felt different now, pressurized, like the air had thickened. The vents groaned faintly above us, steel rattling like something too large was crawling where no human could fit. I could feel it up there, dragging itself through the ducts with long limbs and too many joints. Miles grabbed my sleeve. "We can't just hide." "We're not hiding," I said. "We're trying to last until morning." "But Pete..." "I know." He didn't push me after that. We kept moving, cutting across toys, seasonal, then toward the electronics section. My plan was to loop around the back wall and hit the breaker box near the loading area. The overhead lights had to be turned on before sunrise. That was Rule 6, and if we made it that far, maybe, just maybe, we'd make it out. But we weren't alone anymore. From the far end of the store came a sound that didn't belong to anything human. A low hiss like breath passing through cracked teeth, and then a flicker. 1. The fluorescent lights above us buzzed, dimmed, and steadied. My stomach turned. 2. Miles stopped mid-step. We both stared upward, waiting. The light steadied again. The hum returned. 3. They flickered. Once, twice, then a third time, then popped back to full brightness. And that's when I heard it. Footsteps. Rapid, echoing across the linoleum. Kira appeared from the far aisle, her vest soaked through with sweat. She looked like she'd been running for miles. Her chest heaved as she reached us, eyes wide, unfocused. "Run," she said. "You have to run. I'll stay." "What?" I stepped forward. "Kira, no." She didn't listen. She dropped to her knees and began screaming. Loud, unrelenting. She grabbed a stack of boxes and kicked them down. Then she threw a display sign across the floor and punched the shelving behind her. "Kira," I shouted, voice cracking. "What are you doing?" "Go," she screamed. "I can't hold it off forever." It hit me like a punch in the chest. She was making herself the bait. Rule 5. If the lights flicker 3 times in a row, drop to the floor and stay perfectly still. She was doing the opposite. She was making noise, moving, drawing attention, sacrificing herself. I yanked Miles by the collar. "Move, don't look back." We ran. Behind us, her screams echoed off the shelves, bouncing between bulk cereal and discounted jackets. Then, nothing. The lights went dead still. No flicker, no hum, just silence. And then, crunch, a sickening wet sound that came from deep in the aisles behind us. Bones snapping, something tearing. Miles choked on a sob but kept running. I didn't stop him. We sprinted past patio furniture and rows of office chairs, ducking low as we reached the back wall. I fumbled at the panel, flipping switch after switch with shaking fingers. Kira was gone. Just like Pete. Just like all the others who broke the rules. But she had chosen it. She bought us time. And I wasn't about to waste it. The metal panel in the back wall was old, paint-chipped, dented, and just barely hanging on its hinges. I yanked it open with numb fingers, the hinges groaning in protest. Inside was a row of thick switches, each labeled in faded marker. Front, middle, dairy, loading, deli, and so on. Miles hovered behind me, wide-eyed, still shaking from what we'd heard, what we felt, when Kira stopped screaming. I flipped the first switch. A fluorescent rose stuttered to life above us, buzzing loudly, then another further down. The third one clicked with a soft hum, then blew. There was a sharp pop, and suddenly a spray of sparks fell from the ceiling. I turned my head just in time to see one spark land on a pallet of shrink-wrapped paper towels. Another struck the edge of a crate full of cooking oil bottles. And that was all it took. The paper towels lit up first. Fast and bright like dry leaves. The flame jumped to the oil crates, and the fire spread sideways with terrifying speed. One shelf at a time. Pallets became bonfires in seconds. "Back," I shouted, slamming the panel shut. The entire wall lit up orange behind us. A column of smoke poured toward the rafters. Then the vents screamed. That's the only way I can describe the sound. A metallic screech that started above us and stretched through the entire ceiling. Like something huge and furious was dragging its claws across sheet metal, howling as it crawled through ducts that should never hold its weight. The creature was no longer creeping. It was hunting. We ran. The smoke thickened behind us, curling through the aisles and licking the tops of shelves. The lights above us flickered and failed, some bursting outright, others dimming to an eerie orange glow. It was chaos. The fire alarms didn't go off. Neither did the sprinklers. Whatever the thing was, it didn't just kill people. It killed systems, shut down the things we trusted to keep us safe. The deli counter passed in a blur, Rows of half-filled shelves turned to glowing tunnels of smoke. Miles tripped once, but I caught him before he hit the ground. The vents screamed again, this time closer. I looked up just in time to see it. A long, pale limb stretching down from the ceiling, fingers spidering against the wall as it moved like a centipede. It didn't fall, it didn't stumble. It slid, like it belonged in the smoke, like it had been born from it. We reached the fire doors, giant metal slabs with a rusted emergency bar. I slammed my full weight into it, praying it would give, and it did. With a grinding metallic groan, the doors opened inward. The cold night air hit us like a slap. Wind and snow dust blasted through the doorway, swirling with smoke. Miles shoved past me, coughing and gasping. I followed, stumbling, lungs screaming. We collapsed onto the concrete curb, wheezing. My throat felt raw. Every breath burned. Behind us, the fire grew louder, closer, and then an explosion. The glass skylight above the center of the store exploded outward in a fireball. A blast of heat followed, washing over the parking lot. And through the flames, I saw it. Something pale, tall, and wrong. Its arms were too long. Its shoulders jutted like broken bones under skin. It moved like a marionette with strings pulled by shaking hands. It reached up through the fire, as if trying to claw its way out. Then the roof gave way, and it vanished in a spray of sparks and smoke. The creature was gone, swallowed by flame. For a moment, all I could hear was the wind and the distant wail of sirens, still far too far away. Miles sat beside me, hands in his hair, staring at nothing. The fire crews arrived just after sunrise. Too late to save the store. Too late for Pete. Too late for Kira. The warehouse was still smoking, blackened steel beams jutting from the wreckage like snapped ribs. The roof had caved in completely. The flames were out, but the heat still lingered in the air, trapped in the concrete like a bad memory. They asked us questions, dozens of them. What started the fire? Why we didn't evacuate sooner? Where the others were? Why the emergency systems didn't trigger? I didn't answer. Miles didn't either. Not once. I didn't even bother lying. There was no point. Nothing I could say would make sense. Nothing I told them would ever be believed. So I let them talk around us. Let them write up their reports and take their photos and tape off the entrances. They called it a freak electrical fire. Blamed it on faulty wiring in the freezer units. Said Pete and Kira must have been trapped inside when the roof fell. No one mentioned the smell. That thick, metallic rot that clung to our clothes, that still burned in the back of my throat. Miles sat on the back bumper of the ambulance for hours. Wrapped in a blanket he didn't seem to notice. His eyes never stopped scanning the treetops beyond the parking lot. He didn't ask to go home. He didn't ask for anything at all. I knew he wouldn't be back. Not to work. Not to Costco. Maybe not to anything like it ever again. And I couldn't blame him. As for me, I quit that night. I didn't give 2 weeks' notice. I didn't even call. I just walked home through the ash and the slush and didn't stop until the warehouse was out of sight behind me. But the thing is, leaving didn't help. Not really. Sometimes I still dream about that place. About the freezer glass and the way it shimmered in the dark. About Pete staring up at the ceiling with that last blank expression. About Kira's scream echoing through the aisles before it was cut off. And sometimes, when it's late and I can't sleep, I think about the break room. I see the old laminated sheet, yellowed and curled at the corners, still hanging where we left it. Those rules, those awful simple rules. They were never about keeping us safe. Not really. They were instructions, to make us feel safe, to pretend that by following the rules it would be all right. And lately, I've been wondering about something I never asked before, something none of us ever thought to question. The last rule says someone must turn on every overhead light before sunrise, but it never said what happens if you don't. And now I think I know why. Because whatever that thing was, it cared about the rules and who followed them. Because if someone was stupid enough to break them, it could take you.